So after looking at a few different methods of Orton-Gillingham and a spelling technique, I want to take you back to comprehension for a moment. One of the ways to look at comprehension is like a house, with the basement being entailing remembering and understanding, the next level really being applying and analyzing the information that you gain from the text, and the final level, or the penthouse as we call it, is using the text to evaluate or create new knowledge and products. The importance of informational text was emphasized through Common Core. The other thing that we need to remember in comprehension is that real literature is very important. These two websites are some good sites to find real literature that specifically interests boys. One is guysread.com and the other is boysread.com, or .org, and they both have great resources for series and different literature that interests boys. Why use real literature as opposed to textbooks? Well, overly factual presentations of material end up being boring to most students. Textbooks are also difficult to comprehend and often give a lot of bland facts. They have uneven readability. Some areas of textbooks are really easy to read, and then they switch pretty quickly into difficult areas of more complex text. And a lot of the time, books are outdated. Nowadays, we can get a lot of the textbooks online. However, that brings up new problems with different visual disabilities in reading as well. Bringing in real literature can support your textbook by providing different readability levels, providing different interest themes, promoting the pleasure of reading, and providing background knowledge in various genres as to what is being discussed in your textbook in the content areas. There are three common types of classroom reading material. The first is a reference, and those are dictionaries, encyclopedias, or the atlases with thesauruses. Nowadays, a lot of that is online for our students, but they're written to give an immediate, more simplified answer to a question or a short overview of the topic, such as Wikipedia. The next is a text, and it's designed for formal instruction. It tends to present an overview of a subject. It's organized very methodically. It's normally written by a publisher or a team of authors that are seen as experts in the specific subject area. And then the final one are trade books, and they're published really for retail markets, so they tend to have more appeal to the readers as they provide knowledge, insight, and pleasure. In your PowerPoint notes, I've given you an example of three different kinds of perspectives on the same subject, the asteroid. The first one is a sample reference material, the second one is a textbook, and the final one is a trade book. Obviously, most of our students would prefer to read a trade book on this specific subject area because it's written in such a way to keep your interest level high and to keep you engaged. So why use reference books? They're extremely helpful in getting students started in specific research and introducing them to new terms, keys, concepts, and providing quick fact checks and background information, specific important dates in history, and narrowing down broad topics into specific things they might want to research or continue to learn more about. The benefit of textbooks is that they identify the subject matters that our students are expected to know. They often contain a curriculum map that guides instruction. They provide a clear scope and sequence of the subject matter. They're a resource, and there's often multiple copies available to students in a classroom. The benefits of trade books are that they have a variety of writing styles that appeal to readers. They vary in format and structure. There are lots of perspectives taken using trade books. They have rich language. Their voice tends to be more current, and they really are used more for lifelong learning after students graduate. So when can we really use this authentic literature in the classroom? Well, we can use it to illustrate a concept, to read a selection of a passage before we read something that's required in the textbook. We can use it to supplement something that's taught in the textbook. We can use it for book talks and in literature circles, and we can also use it for read-alouds. There are a few things that I want to make sure you're aware of at the bottom of week 7. There are 2 extra iPad apps that provide not only the names of the apps, but descriptions and where best to use them in reading, writing, math, etc. And if you haven't seen Kid President, be sure to watch the ending clip. If you have, you can ignore it. As you end this course, I want to leave you with 2 video clips. The first is about the difference between girls and boys in reading, just to kind of help you to understand. This was done in 2014, so it still is a struggle It's getting better, it's improving, it's improved a lot since 2010, but it's still an issue that we need to be aware of as teachers. And finally, I'm also going to have you watch Steven Spielberg's clip on his own dyslexia. I think it's inspiring, and I think it's helpful to show students the different various people that they look up to that struggle with their same disability.
There is a gender gap in reading ability between American girls and boys. In 2012, the National Assessment of Educational Progress showed a 5-point gap in reading scores between 9-year-old boys and girls. The gap grows to 8 points at age 13 and holds at 8 points for age 17. Despite what some believe, this gap is shrinking. At all 3 ages, gender gaps were larger in 1971 than they are today. The gap for 9-year-olds shrank from 13 to 5 points. The gender gap is not unique to America. It is worldwide. Compared to other countries, the reading gap between American girls and boys is on the low end. Finland had the largest gender gap in 2012. Shocking given the praise that Finland receives for its high test scores and effective school system. Girls tend to enjoy reading more than boys, but that doesn't account for the achievement gap. Even in the countries that have successfully increased boys' enjoyment of reading, there is no correlation with changes in reading scores. In France, boys saw an increase in reading enjoyment of 0.11 points. However, they saw a decrease in literacy of just over 15 points. While in Chile, boys saw a meager increase in reading enjoyment of 0.01 points, but they saw a dramatic increase in literacy of about 42 points. The gender reading gap doesn't last. Among adult men and women, reading scores equal out by age 35. But some gaps do remain. 2 out of 3 of those who say they never read books are men.
What was and is the number one difficulty that you've had with your dyslexia, even though you've just been diagnosed only a few years ago?
Yeah, 5 years ago I was diagnosed as having been dyslexic for my entire life, and which explained a lot of things. It was like the last puzzle part in a tremendous mystery that I've kept to myself all these years. It basically started with just things that happen when you're a kid in school and you're a slow reader. And in my case, I was actually unable to read for at least 2 years. I was 2 years behind the rest of my class, and of course I went through what everybody goes through, is teasing.
Yeah.
And I had to go through that for a long time. And so the teasing, led to a lot of other problems I was having in school, but it all stems from the fact that I was embarrassed to stand up in front of the class and read.
So you have always kind of known that you were a little different than everybody else.
Yeah.
How has making friends been for you when you were a kid? What was that like?
Well, I could make friends in sort of my own, social circle, and my social circle was probably a pretty big social circle because it was a lot of kids who had, let's put it this way, my friends couldn't throw a football, they couldn't catch a baseball.
Like the Goonies.
You got it. That's why I made the Goonies. That's why I wrote the stories, because I was a member of the Goon Squad when I was a kid growing up. But all of my friends, as it turns out, we all grew up. They all had different kinds of disabilities. They had different kinds of dysregulations, and we all had a lot of stuff in common. And not the least of which, several of us were dyslexic. And dyslexia, of course, was the first thing that led me to realize that I was different. Although I didn't have a name for it, I just knew that I dreaded going to school. Because if I was called on, and I was told to stand in the front of the class and open my book and read from the book in 3rd grade, if that day would be another long day in a long series of the worst days of my life.
Was there ever a teacher that said, normally the hearing of dyslexia, or the coping starts with a caring teacher saying, there's something a little different about you and I would like to help you. Was there ever a teacher that said, we should work on this together?
Yes, there was. There were teachers that didn't quite understand why I was so behind the rest of the class in my reading skills, and talked to my parents about it. But there was nothing, we're talking about the 1950s, and there was not a program. There were not books being written about dyslexia. Nobody diagnosed me as being dyslexic, and so all they could do was assume that I wasn't studying hard enough, that I wasn't reading hard enough, that I was perhaps lazy. Yes.
Which one of your parents were more involved in helping you in school?
My mom.
Yeah.
My mom was involved in things like English and my dad was very involved with me with math. But they were both really, really caring parents in terms of my keeping up with my studies, and they were very, very strict about the homework. They were very, very strict. The television set was not to go on until they checked my homework. Same old, right?
Yeah. So when you got bullied, how did you deal with that?
I got bullied. I dealt with it by making movies.
Yeah.
Making movies was my cover-up.
What was the hardest time for you in school that you remember?
Well, it was just that period, I think, of probably junior high, I would say. About 7th, 8th grade, and also some high school, I think junior high. Kids, before they start to see themselves from, the point of view of others, can be really, really harsh, really deep. And they can't help it, and they don't even know that they mean. So as an adult, I can look back and I don't have any.
They don't realize the damage they're doing.
I have no resentment or anything to what I went through as a kid, because I kind of understand it. But at the same time, I think it was those junior high school years that were the hardest.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, there was no such. They didn't call it dyslexia. They called it slow, retarded, whatever. And so I learned from a guy who was running a program who I met one day, and he had written out on a board a sentence. And I said to him, I can't read that. And he said, why not? And I said, because it doesn't make any sense. So he said, well, write down what you see. Under each, whatever you see, write exactly what you see underneath. And so he brought me 2 letters by coordinating what I saw to something called an A or a B or a C or a D. And that was pretty cool. What you can never change is the effect that the words dumb and stupid have on young people. So we must always be vigilant when those 2 words get stuck in our throat. Hey, dummy, God, you're so stupid. Just remember that what those leave you with are forever. Be it in 1810 or 4010. The effect that they have is the same.
There are a total of 52 videos on YouTube alone that have actresses speaking out about their experience with dyslexia. And if you haven't seen it or heard it, and you didn't read it or watch it in your coursework, remember Dyslexia the movie. It's listed in your coursework. It's a great movie. I think all families of students who struggle with reading should watch it because it's inspiring, but it also helps them see that some of our top money-making people in the world struggle with a reading disability. I want to remind you that this week's videos, the Orton-Gillingham methods, the spelling technique, these are just some methods. They aren't a cure-all. They're just some methods to give you an idea of what might work. It was a joy to have you all in class, and I hope that you're able to use everything that you learned from your book and this course to really create a multisensory literacy approach that works for your students.